The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in March of 1878, and Victoria Delac knew before she opened it that her life was about to change forever. Though she could never have guessed that the change would come not from the words on that yellow paper, but from a dusty cowboy who would walk into her father's store 3 days later with nothing but honest eyes and a heart full of hope. Victoria stood behind the counter of Delac General Store in Raton, New Mexico, her fingers trembling as she unfolded the telegram. The words swam before her eyes, each one a nail in the coffin of the dreams she had quietly harbored since girlhood. Arriving April 15th. Wedding preparations should commence. Regards, Edward Thornton, Roman 3. Her father emerged from the back room, his weathered face lighting up when he saw what she held. "Ah, from young Thornton, I presume? Excellent. This alliance will secure our family's position, Victoria. The Thorntons control half the cattle operations between here and Santa Fe. Your mother would have been so proud." Victoria forced a smile, though her heart felt like lead in her chest. She had never met Edward Thornton, Roman 3, had only seen a single daguerreotype that showed a stern-faced man of 30 with cold eyes and a rigid posture. Their betrothal had been arranged 6 months ago, a business transaction disguised as matrimony. Her father, Henry Delacroix, needed the Thornton family's influence to expand his mercantile business. Edward Thornton needed a wife of proper breeding to enhance his social standing. Love had never entered the equation. "Yes, father," she said quietly, tucking the telegram into her apron pocket. "I will begin preparations." Henry squeezed her shoulder, mistaking her resignation for acceptance. "You are a good daughter, Victoria. This marriage will benefit us all. Now we have inventory to manage. Those supply wagons should arrive any moment." Victoria returned to her duties, mechanically arranging canned goods on shelves and recording transactions in the ledger. At 22, she had long ago accepted that romantic love was a luxury reserved for dime novels and foolish girls. She was practical, educated, and dutiful. She would marry Edward Thornton, bear his children, and manage his household with efficiency. It was what women of her station did. The bell above the door chimed, and she glanced up from her work. A man stepped inside, removing his worn hat to reveal sun-streaked brown hair and the kind of face that spoke of long days under open sky. He was tall and lean, with broad shoulders and hands that showed honest work. Dust covered his clothes, and his boots were scuffed from hard riding. Everything about him screamed cowboy, from the gun belt at his hip to the easy, confident way he moved. "Afternoon," he said, and his voice was warm like summer honey. "I am looking for Henry Delacroix. I was told he might have work available." Victoria found herself staring and quickly looked away, heat rising to her cheeks. "My father is in the back. I will fetch him." "Thank you kindly, miss." He smiled, and something in Victoria's chest tightened unexpectedly. She hurried to the back room, composing herself. This was absurd. She was an engaged woman, and this stranger was simply a drifter looking for employment. There was no reason for her heart to be racing. Henry emerged and spoke with the cowboy for several minutes. Victoria pretended to busy herself with inventory while straining to hear their conversation. The man's name was Wade Kingston. He had worked cattle drives from Texas to Montana, had experience with horses, and was looking to settle in one place for a while. He was honest about his lack of formal education but confident in his skills. Henry, always pragmatic, offered him work managing deliveries and handling the heavier aspects of the store's operations. "You can start tomorrow," Henry said. "There is a room above the stable out back. It is not much, but it is clean and dry." "That would be perfect, sir." "I appreciate the opportunity." Wade shook Henry's hand firmly, then tipped his hat to Victoria. "Madam." After he left, Victoria found herself watching through the window as he led his horse toward the stable. There was something different about him, something that made her feel both unsettled and strangely alive. The next morning, Wade arrived as the sun painted the eastern sky pink and gold. Victoria was sweeping the front steps when he approached, and she was struck again by the open honesty in his face. Most men in her social circle wore masks of propriety and ambition. Wade Kingston looked like he had never hidden anything in his life. "Morning, Miss Delacroix," he said. "Your father around. He is having breakfast. He should be down shortly." She paused, then added, "You can call me Victoria. Victoria." He said her name like it meant something. "That is a beautiful name, means victory, does it not?" She was surprised. "Yes, it does. You know Latin." He grinned, a touch of self-deprecation in his expression. "My mother was a schoolteacher before she married my father. She insisted all her children learn proper. I may not have fancy education, but I can read and write and cipher well enough. She made sure of that before she passed." "I am sorry about your mother," Victoria said softly. "Thank you. It has been 10 years now. She was a good woman." He shifted his hat in his hands. "I should probably get to work. Do not want your father thinking he hired a layabout." Over the following days, Victoria found herself increasingly aware of Wade's presence. He was everything Edward Thornton was not. Where Edward's letters were formal and cold, Wade's conversation was warm and genuine. Where Edward spoke of business arrangements and social obligations, Wade talked about the stars over open prairie and the satisfaction of honest work. Where Edward saw her as a commodity to enhance his status, Wade treated her like a person worth knowing. She tried to maintain proper distance. She was engaged, after all, and it would be improper to develop feelings for another man. But Wade made it difficult. He was unfailingly polite but never stiff, respectful but never distant. He asked her opinion on things, listened when she spoke, and seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts. One afternoon, while helping her arrange heavy crates in the storeroom, he asked, "What made you want to work in a general store?" Victoria laughed, though there was little humor in it. "One had nothing to do with it. My mother died when I was 16. My father needed help, so I learned the business." "But if you could do anything," Wade pressed gently, "what would you choose?" No one had ever asked her that before. She paused, a bolt of calico in her hands. "I used to want to be a teacher like your mother. I love books and learning." "But that was a childhood dream." "Why was?" Wade asked. "You are not exactly ancient." She smiled despite herself. "I am 22. That is old for unmarried women. Not where I come from. Women marry when they find the right person, not when some calendar tells them to." He hefted another crate easily. "Besides, 22 is not old. You have your whole life ahead of you." "My life is fairly well planned out already," Victoria said, more sharply than she intended. Then softer, "I am engaged to be married next month." Wade's hand stilled on the crate. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. "I see. Congratulations." "Thank you." The words felt hollow. They worked in silence after that, but the easy companionship had shifted into something more complicated. Victoria felt the weight of her engagement ring, hidden in her pocket because her father thought it improper to wear while working. It suddenly felt less like a promise and more like a chain. That evening, after the store closed, Victoria sat in her room above the shop and reread Edward's letters. They were all business, discussing property arrangements, the wedding ceremony, and expectations for her duties as his wife. Not once did he ask about her interests, her dreams, or her feelings. Not once did he write anything that suggested he saw her as more than a useful acquisition. She thought about Wade's question. What did she want? For the first time in 6 years, she let herself truly consider it. She wanted to be seen, not as a merchant's daughter or a convenient alliance, but as Victoria, a woman with thoughts and dreams and desires. She wanted conversation that sparked something in her soul. She wanted to feel alive, the way she felt when Wade smiled at her across the store. But wanting and having were two different things, especially for women in 1878. She had made a commitment, and her father was counting on this alliance. She could not simply cast it aside because a handsome cowboy made her heart race. The next week passed in a strange tension. Wade remained professional and courteous, never overstepping boundaries, but Victoria caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she could not quite read. For her part, she tried to focus on wedding preparations, ordering fabric for her dress and planning the ceremony with dutiful efficiency. One morning, a wealthy rancher named Samuel Bartlett came into the store, drunk and belligerent. He had been a problem in town before, using his money and influence to bully people. He grabbed Victoria's arm when she tried to serve him, his grip painful and his breath reeking of whiskey. "Pretty little thing like you should smile more," Bartlett slurred. "How about you and me go somewhere private?" "Let me go," Victoria said firmly, trying to pull away. "I do not think so. I am a paying customer, and the customer is always." Wade's hand clamped down on Bartlett's wrist. "The lady asked you to let go." Bartlett spun, nearly losing his balance. "This is none of your concern, Drifter. When a man disrespects a woman, it becomes every decent person's concern." Wade's voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "Now you can leave peacefully or we can involve the sheriff. Your choice." For a moment, Bartlett looked like he might fight. Then he seemed to register the quiet strength in Wade's stance and the gun at his hip. He jerked his arm free and stumbled toward the door. "This is not over. My family has influence in this territory." After he left, Wade turned to Victoria. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" Victoria rubbed her arm where Bartlett had gripped her. "I am fine. Thank you for intervening." "You do not have to thank me for basic decency." His eyes searched her face with concern. "You are sure you are all right?" The genuine worry in his voice nearly undid her. Edward had never shown such concern for her well-being. "Yes, truly. I have dealt with difficult customers before, but he was worse than usual." "Men like that," Wade said quietly, "they think money and status give them the right to do as they please. They are wrong." Henry emerged from the back, having heard the commotion. After Victoria explained what happened, he praised Wade's handling of the situation. "Though I worry about Bartlett making trouble, his family does have considerable influence." "Then they should use it to teach him how to behave like a gentleman," Wade said simply. That night, Victoria lay awake thinking about the contrast between Wade's immediate defense of her and Edward's letters that never once expressed concern for her happiness or well-being. She was beginning to realize that security and social standing meant nothing without respect and genuine care. The following Sunday, Victoria attended church as usual. Edward's family had sent word that he would arrive a week earlier than planned, eager to finalize arrangements. The wedding was now 3 weeks away. Victoria felt like she was drowning, going through the motions of life while her true self suffocated beneath layers of duty and expectation. After the service, she walked to the small cemetery where her mother was buried. It was her habit to visit every week, to talk to her mother's grave about her life and troubles. Today, she knelt in the grass and whispered, "Mama, I do not know what to do. I know Father believes this marriage is best, but I feel like I am selling my soul for security." "Is that what you would want for me?" "I do not mean to intrude," a voice said softly behind her. Victoria turned to find Wade standing a respectful distance away, hat in hand. "I come here sometimes too, My father is buried over there." He gestured to a simple marker under a cottonwood tree. "He died last year, caught pneumonia on a cattle drive." "I am sorry," Victoria said, rising and brushing grass from her skirt. "You have lost both your parents." "Yes, and my brother died at Gettysburg during the war. It is just me now." He moved closer, his expression gentle. "I heard what you said to your mother. I am sorry. I should not have listened, but I did not want to interrupt." Victoria's cheeks flushed. "Then you know I am not exactly thrilled about my upcoming marriage." "Victoria," Wade said, and the way he spoke her name made her heart ache. "Can I ask you something? And will you answer honestly?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "You love him. This man you are going to marry." "I have never even met him," she admitted. "It was arranged by our families." Wade was quiet for a long moment. "And if you had a choice? If there were no expectations or obligations, what would you choose?" Victoria looked into his eyes and saw everything she wanted reflected back at her. Honesty, warmth, genuine caring. She saw a future not of cold propriety but of real partnership and affection, but she also saw impossibility. "It does not matter what I would choose," she said, her voice breaking. "I have obligations. My father depends on this alliance. I cannot simply abandon him for my own selfish desires." "Wanting to be happy is not selfish," Wade said intently. "Wanting to be with someone who sees you, truly sees you, that is not selfish. That is human." "Wade, I know I have no right to say this. I know I am nobody, just a drifter with nothing to offer but hard work and honest intentions. But Victoria, in the short time I have known you, I have seen who you really are. You are brilliant and kind and strong. You deserve someone who appreciates that, who wants to know your thoughts and dreams, who would be honored to stand beside you, not as a business arrangement but as a partner in life." Tears pricked Victoria's eyes. "Why are you saying this?" "Because I am in love with you," Wade said simply. "I know it is fast. I know it sounds crazy, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. And I think, maybe, you might feel something for me too." Victoria wanted to deny it, to maintain the propriety she had been raised to uphold. But standing there in the cemetery with spring sunlight filtering through the trees, she could not lie. "I do feel something for you, but it does not change anything. I am engaged. You are engaged to a man you do not love, who does not love you." "Is that really what you want for the rest of your life?" Wade took a step closer. "I am not asking you to run away with me tomorrow. I am asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, there is another choice. Marry me instead." Victoria stared at him. "What, marry me?" Wade repeated. "Not for alliances or business deals, for love, for partnership, for the chance to build something real together." "You are insane," Victoria whispered, but her heart was racing. "You have known me for barely 2 weeks." "Sometimes you just know," Wade said. "When it is right, you know." "My parents met and married within a month. They had 33 years together, and every day my father said marrying my mother was the best decision he ever made. Not because she brought him wealth or status, but because they were partners. They loved each other. My father will never agree. He needs the Thornton alliance. Your father loves you. If he truly understood how unhappy this marriage would make you, would he still insist on it?" Victoria thought about her father. He was a businessman, yes, but he was not cruel. When her mother died, he had grieved deeply. He spoke of her with such love and tenderness. Would he really want his daughter to have less than what he had experienced? "I do not know," she said honestly. "But Wade, even if I wanted to accept your proposal, you do not understand what you would be giving up. The Thornton family has enormous influence. If I break this engagement, they could ruin my father's business. They could make life very difficult for you too." "Let them try," Wade said with quiet confidence. "I have worked hard jobs in harsh conditions. I have survived stampedes and storms and men who wanted me dead. I am not afraid of rich people with hurt pride, but I am afraid of living my whole life wondering what might have been if I had been brave enough to fight for what I wanted." "You are serious about this," Victoria said, searching his face. "Completely serious. I am offering you a real choice, Victoria. You can marry Edward Thornton for duty and spend your life wondering what love might have felt like, or you can take a chance on me. I cannot promise you wealth or social position, but I can promise you honesty, respect, and a love that will last until my dying breath. I will work every day to make you happy. I will listen when you speak. I will be your partner in every sense of the word." Victoria felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind her was the safe, predictable path her father had laid out. Ahead was the unknown, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Wade was offering her everything she had secretly longed for, wrapped in uncertainty and risk. "I need time to think," she finally said. Wade nodded, though disappointment flickered across his face. "Of course. I am not trying to pressure you. I just needed you to know that you have a choice. Whatever you decide, I will respect it." He started to walk away, then turned back. "One more thing. I do not have much, but I have been saving my wages. I have enough to buy a small piece of land outside town. Nothing fancy, but enough to build a house, maybe raise some horses and cattle. I have been planning to do it alone, but if you said yes, we could build that life together. You could have your schoolhouse if you wanted. There are families out that way who need a teacher for their children. You could have the life you dreamed of." After he left, Victoria sank back down beside her mother's grave. "Oh, Mama, what do I do?" The wind rustled through the cottonwood trees, and for a moment, Victoria could almost hear her mother's voice. "Be happy, my darling. Be happy." The next few days were torture. Victoria went through her routines mechanically, helping customers and managing inventory while her mind spun in circles. Wade maintained his professionalism at work, never pressing her or making her uncomfortable. But sometimes their eyes would meet across the store, and the weight of unspoken possibilities hung heavy between them. Edward Thornton arrived exactly on schedule, stepping out of an expensive carriage with the air of a man inspecting property. He was taller than Victoria had expected, with carefully groomed hair and expensive clothes. He looked at her father with warmth but examined Victoria with the detachment of someone assessing livestock. "Miss Delacroix," he said, taking her hand briefly. His grip was cold and limp. "You are as lovely as your father described. I trust the wedding arrangements are progressing satisfactorily." "Yes, sir," Victoria said, feeling nauseous. "Excellent. I have brought the contracts for your father to review. The property arrangements and financial terms are all detailed therein." He spoke to her father, not to her, as if she were not present. "Once we are wed, Victoria will accompany me to Santa Fe. I have a suitable house there, and she will need to acquaint herself with her duties as mistress of the household." "What about the store?" Victoria asked. "My father depends on my help." Edward waved a dismissive hand. "I am sure your father can hire adequate assistance. Your place will be in my home, managing domestic affairs and eventually raising our children. I have very specific ideas about how my household should be run." Victoria felt something inside her harden. This man did not want a wife. He wanted a servant he could dress up for social occasions. Over dinner that evening, Edward discussed business with her father while Victoria remained silent. He mentioned his plans to expand his cattle operations, his political ambitions, and his expectations for the social events Victoria would be required to host. Not once did he ask about her interests, her thoughts, or her feelings. When he finally addressed her directly, it was to say, "I expect my wife to be well versed in the domestic arts. Can you cook and sew adequately? I can do both, Victoria said tightly. Good. I also expect punctuality and efficiency. I run my household with the same precision I apply to my business affairs. He paused, then added as if conferring a great favor. Of course, you will have a household staff to assist you. I understand women find such tasks overwhelming without proper help. Victoria bit her tongue to keep from responding. This man truly believed women were incapable of managing anything of importance. The contrast between his condescension and Wade's genuine respect could not have been starker. After Edward left to check into the hotel, Henry smiled at Victoria. He is quite impressive, is he not? Very successful for his age, you will want for nothing. Father, Victoria said slowly, can I ask you something? Of course, my dear. When you married Mother, did you love her? Henry's expression softened. With all my heart. From the moment I met her, I knew she was extraordinary. Marrying your mother was the greatest joy of my life. Would you have married her if it had only been a business arrangement? If you had never loved each other? Henry frowned. Where is this coming from, Victoria? I need to know. Would you have been happy in a loveless marriage, even if it brought you business success? Her father was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally admitted. I would not have. Your mother and I had very little when we started out, but we had each other. That made everything worthwhile. He studied her face. You are not happy about this marriage, are you? Tears welled in Victoria's eyes. No, father, I am not. Edward does not see me as a person. He sees me as a useful object to manage his household and enhance his reputation. He has not once asked about my thoughts or interests. He speaks to me like I am a child or a servant. Henry looked troubled. But the alliance— I know the alliance is important to you, Victoria interrupted. But father, I do not love him. I do not even like him. And he certainly does not love me. Is that really what you want for me? Is that what Mother would have wanted? Henry sank into his chair, suddenly looking old. Your mother made me promise before she died that I would ensure you were cared for. I thought security was the most important thing I could give you. Mother told you to ensure I was cared for, not that I was comfortable. There is a difference. Victoria knelt beside her father's chair. I appreciate everything you have done for me, but I cannot marry Edward Thornton. I will not spend my life with a man who sees me as property. But we gave our word. The contracts are nearly finalized. If we back out now, the Thorntons will be furious. Victoria took a deep breath. Then let them be furious. Father, I have another proposal to consider. Wade Kingston has asked me to marry him. Henry's eyebrows shot up. The cowboy. But he has nothing. He has something Edward does not have. He has my heart. Victoria's voice was steady now, certain. Wade sees me, truly sees me. He respects my opinions. He encourages my dreams. He wants to build a life with me, not acquire me like a piece of furniture. Is that not worth more than all of Edward's wealth? Victoria, this is madness. You barely know this man. I know him better than I know Edward, and I like what I know. Wade is honest and hardworking and kind. He makes me happy, father. When did you last see me truly happy? Henry opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and seemed to see something he had been missing. You are in love with him. Yes, Victoria said simply. I am. Her father stood and paced the room. Victoria waited, her heart pounding. Finally, Henry turned back to her. Your mother made me promise to ensure you were cared for, but she also told me something else, something I had forgotten until now. She said, let our daughter be happy, Henry. Promise me that above all else. I was so focused on security that I forgot about happiness. So you will let me break the engagement? Victoria hardly dared to hope. The Thorntons will retaliate. They will try to hurt our business. Then we will survive it, Victoria said. We did well enough before their alliance was proposed. We can do well enough again." Henry sighed deeply. "I will have to speak with Edward, explain the situation. It will not be pleasant." Victoria threw her arms around her father. Thank you so much." "Just promise me one thing," Henry said. "Promise me this Wade Kingston will treat you well. If he does not, I will personally make him regret it." "He will," Victoria assured him. "I know he will." The confrontation with Edward Thornton was exactly as unpleasant as anticipated. He arrived at the store the next morning, expecting to finalize wedding details, only to be told the engagement was off. His face turned an alarming shade of red. "This is unacceptable," he sputtered. "We have a contract." "An informal agreement," Henry corrected. "No legal contracts have been signed yet. My daughter has decided she cannot marry you, and I support her decision." "Cannot marry me? I am one of the most eligible bachelors in the territory. What possible objection could she have?" Victoria stepped forward. "You do not love me, Mr. Thornton. And I do not love you. Surely you can see that such a marriage would benefit neither of us in the long run." "Love?" Edward scoffed. "Marriage is not about love, Miss Delacroix. It is about mutual benefit, social standing, and the production of legitimate heirs. Love is a frivolous notion for foolish romantics." "Then I am a foolish romantic," Victoria said calmly, "because I will not marry without love." Edward's eyes narrowed. "There is someone else, is there not? Some unsuitable man has turned your head with pretty words." "There is someone else," Victoria admitted. "Someone who treats me with respect and sees me as an equal partner, not a decorative object or a brood mare." "You will regret this," Edward said coldly. "My family has considerable influence in this territory. We can make life very difficult for you and your father." "We will manage," Henry said firmly. "Now, I believe we have nothing more to discuss. Good day, Mr. Thornton." After Edward stormed out, Victoria felt like she could breathe properly for the first time in months. The weight of obligation had lifted, replaced by the exhilaration of choosing her own path. She found Wade in the back, loading supplies onto a wagon. When he saw her face, he set down the crate he was holding. "What happened?" "I broke my engagement," Victoria said, and she was grinning. "I told Edward I would not marry him, and my father supported my decision." Hope and joy flooded Wade's face. I mean yes," Victoria said. "Yes, Wade Kingston, I will marry you, for love, not for alliance, for partnership, not for duty, yes to all of it." Wade closed the distance between them in 2 strides and swept her into his arms. He spun her around, laughing with pure happiness. When he set her down, he cupped her face gently in his hands. "I will spend every day of my life making sure you never regret this choice. I promise you that." "I already know I will not regret it," Victoria said softly. Then, throwing propriety to the wind, she kissed him. It was nothing like the brief, cold kiss Edward had given her hand. This was warm and alive and full of promise. It was the kiss of 2 people choosing each other, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It was the kiss that sealed a new beginning. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Wade said, "So when can we get married? I have waited 2 weeks to call you my wife." "I do not want to wait much longer." "We should probably court properly for at least a little while," Victoria said, though she was already mentally calculating how quickly a wedding could be arranged. "All right, but I am giving you fair warning. I plan to court you so thoroughly that you will be begging to marry me within the month." "I am already begging to marry you," Victoria laughed, "but we should do this properly. My father needs time to adjust to the idea, and I need time to plan a wedding that is actually about the 2 of us, not about business arrangements." Over the next month, Wade courted Victoria with a dedication that made the whole town smile. He brought her wildflowers every morning. He read to her from books of poetry in the evenings. He took her on walks where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. He met her at church and sat beside her, holding her hand and singing hymns in a surprisingly good baritone. He also made good on his promise about the land. He took Victoria to see the property he had purchased, a beautiful stretch of meadow and trees with a creek running through it and a view of the mountains in the distance. "I thought we could build the house right there," Wade said, pointing to a gentle rise. "Good drainage, nice view, close enough to the creek for water. And over there," he gestured to a flat area surrounded by cottonwoods, "that would be perfect for a schoolhouse if you wanted to teach." Victoria looked around, her imagination already transforming the empty land into a home. She could see the house Wade described, could picture children playing in the yard and horses grazing in the meadow. It was not the grand estate Edward would have provided, but it was something infinitely better. It was theirs, built on love and shared dreams. "It is perfect," she said. Absolutely perfect. The threats from the Thornton family materialized quickly. Edward's father sent word that they would no longer do business with Delacroix General Store and would encourage others to follow suit. Several wealthy families who had been loyal customers suddenly stopped coming. Henry's face grew lined with worry as he watched profits decline. But something unexpected happened. The ordinary people of Raton, the farmers and ranchers and working families, rallied around the Delacroix family. They had heard how Edward had treated Victoria and how Wade had stood up for what was right. They respected that. Business from the working class increased, making up for much of what was lost from the wealthy elite. Moreover, Wade proved his worth time and again. He negotiated better prices with suppliers, using his connections from years of working cattle. He organized more efficient delivery routes. He suggested new products that working families actually needed, rather than the luxury items Henry had stocked to appeal to wealthy customers. Within 6 weeks, the store was doing better than ever, just with a different clientele. "I have to admit," Henry told Wade one evening, "I had my doubts about you, but you have proven yourself a dozen times over. You have more integrity in your little finger than Edward Thornton has in his entire body. I appreciate that, sir, and I promise I will work just as hard to make Victoria happy." "I know you will," Henry said, clapping Wade on the shoulder. "Welcome to the family, son." They set the wedding date for May 20th, 1878, exactly 2 months after Victoria had received that fateful telegram. The ceremony would be simple, held at the church with a reception at the store afterward. Victoria sewed her own wedding dress, a beautiful creation of cream-colored silk with delicate lace at the collar and sleeves. It was not as elaborate as the dress that had been commissioned for her wedding to Edward, but it was infinitely more meaningful because she had made it herself. The night before the wedding, Victoria stood at her window looking out over Raton. The town was quiet in the darkness, just a few lights twinkling here and there. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would become Mrs. Wade Kingston, embarking on a life built on love rather than obligation. She heard a soft tap at her door and opened it to find her father standing there, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "May I come in?" "Of course, father." Henry sat down heavily, holding something wrapped in cloth. "I wanted to give you this tonight, so you could have it for tomorrow." He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a beautiful pearl necklace. "This was your mother's. Her grandmother brought it from France when the family emigrated. It has been passed down through 3 generations of women. I want you to have it." Victoria's breath caught. "Father, it is beautiful. Your mother wore it on our wedding day. She said it made her feel connected to all the women in her family who had worn it before, all the women who had married for love and built lives with the men they chose. He fastened it around Victoria's neck. She would be so proud of you, my dear, proud that you had the courage to choose your own path. Thank you, Father, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face, for everything. For supporting my choice, for accepting Wade, for loving me enough to put my happiness first. That is what parents do, Henry said gruffly, wiping his own eyes. Now you should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, with a warm spring breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. Victoria dressed carefully, her hands surprisingly steady. When she looked at herself in the mirror, wearing her mother's pearls and the dress she had made with her own hands, she felt beautiful. Not because of the clothes or jewelry, but because of the joy radiating from within her. Her father escorted her to the church, and when the doors opened and she saw Wade standing at the altar, her heart soared. He wore his best clothes, his face clean-shaven and his hair neatly combed. But what made him beautiful was the expression on his face when he saw her walking toward him. Pure, undiluted love and awe, as if he could not quite believe his good fortune. The ceremony was brief, but heartfelt. The minister spoke about love and partnership, about choosing each other every day, about building a life on mutual respect and honest affection. When it came time for the vows, Wade took Victoria's hands in his and spoke in a clear, strong voice. Victoria, I promise to honor you every day of my life. I promise to listen when you speak, to support your dreams, to stand beside you through whatever challenges we face. I promise to love you not just for who you are today, but for who you will become. You are my partner, my equal, and my greatest blessing. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the trust you have placed in me. Victoria's vows were equally heartfelt. Wade, you taught me that love is not something to settle for or something to sacrifice for duty. You showed me that I deserve to be seen and valued for who I truly am. I promise to build a life with you based on honesty and respect. I promise to be your partner in every sense, to support your dreams as you support mine. You have won my heart completely, and I give it to you freely and joyfully. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Wade kissed her with such tenderness that several people in the congregation wiped their eyes. It was a kiss full of promise, the beginning of a life they would build together. The reception was a joyful affair. The store had been decorated with wildflowers and ribbons. Tables were laden with food that friends and neighbors had contributed. People danced and laughed and celebrated not just a wedding but a love story that had captured the whole town's imagination. Samuel Bartlett, the drunk who had accosted Victoria weeks before, made a brief appearance, apparently hoping to cause trouble. But when he saw the whole community gathered in support of the newlyweds, he wisely decided to leave. Wade watched him go with a satisfied expression. That man will never bother you again, he told Victoria, not with the whole town watching out for you. As the evening wore on, Victoria found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Mrs. Patterson, who ran the boarding house, hugged her tightly. You did the right thing, dear. I was married to a man I did not love for 15 years before he passed. I would not wish that life on anyone. Choose love every time. Mr. Chen, who owned the laundry, gave them a beautiful quilt he had commissioned from his wife. For your new home, he said with a smile. May it keep you warm for many years. Even some of the wealthier families who had initially sided with the Thorntons came to offer congratulations, impressed by Victoria's courage and Wade's obvious devotion. The tide of public opinion had turned decidedly against Edward Thornton, whose cold treatment of Victoria had been widely discussed and criticized. As the celebration wound down, Wade and Victoria slipped away to the small cabin Wade had been building on their land. It was not finished yet, just a simple two-room structure, but it was theirs. Wade carried Victoria over the threshold, both of them laughing. "Welcome home, Mrs. Kingston," he said, setting her down gently. "It needs furniture and curtains and about a million other things," Victoria said, looking around the bare room. "We will get there," Wade assured her. "We have time. We have the rest of our lives." That night, lying in Wade's arms in their unfinished cabin under a blanket of stars visible through the not yet completed roof, Victoria felt a peace she had never known. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Safe and exciting at the same time. Comfortable and thrilling. A partnership of equals who chose each other freely. "Are you happy?" Wade whispered into the darkness. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Victoria replied honestly. "You kept your promise. You won my heart completely." "And you have mine," Wade said, pulling her closer. "Forever." The months that followed were filled with hard work and simple joy. Wade finished building their house, a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch and windows that let in plenty of light. Victoria planted a garden and filled the house with curtains and rugs and the small touches that made it a home. They acquired chickens and a milk cow, then a few horses that Wade planned to train and sell. True to his word, Wade helped Victoria establish a small school in the cottonwood grove on their property. Word spread quickly, and soon families from the surrounding area were bringing their children to be taught. Victoria discovered she loved teaching, loved watching young minds absorb knowledge and grow. Wade built desks and a chalkboard and watched with pride as his wife pursued her dream. In the evenings, they would sit on their porch and talk about their days, their dreams, their plans for the future. Sometimes Wade would play his harmonica and Victoria would sing. Sometimes they would just sit in comfortable silence, holding hands and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. The Thornton family continued their attempts to cause trouble for several months. Edward tried to buy up land surrounding Wade and Victoria's property, hoping to make their life difficult. But the neighboring ranchers, who respected Wade and liked Victoria, refused to sell. Eventually, Edward gave up and moved to Santa Fe permanently, apparently deciding that Raton held too many unpleasant memories. The following spring, Victoria discovered she was expecting their first child. Wade was beside himself with joy, treating her like she might break at any moment. Victoria found his protectiveness endearing if sometimes excessive. "I am not made of glass," she laughed when he insisted on doing all the heavy chores. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "Yes, but none of those women were my wife," Wade said stubbornly. "I am not taking any chances with your health or the babies." Their son was born in December of 1879, a healthy baby with his mother's dark hair and his father's easy temperament. They named him Thomas, after Wade's father. Wade held his son with such gentle reverence that Victoria fell in love with him all over again. Henry Delac was a devoted grandfather, closing the store early every day to visit his grandson. The hardships caused by the broken engagement seemed like a distant memory now. The store was thriving with its new focus on serving working families, and Henry had never been happier. "You know," he told Victoria one day as he held baby Thomas, "I thought I was protecting you by arranging that marriage to Thornton. I thought security was the most important thing I could give you. But watching you now, seeing how happy you are, I realize I was wrong. This is what I should have wanted for you all along. Love and partnership and genuine happiness." "You did protect me, Father," Victoria said gently. "You listened when I told you what I really needed. That took courage too." Victoria's school continued to grow. By the time Thomas was 2 years old, she was teaching 15 students ranging in age from 6 to 14. She ran classes in the morning, leaving afternoons free for her own family. Wade often helped with the older students, teaching them practical skills like horse handling and ranch management alongside their reading and arithmetic. In the summer of 1882, Victoria gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah after Wade's mother. Unlike her brother, Sarah was fierce and opinionated from the moment she was born, and Wade loved her with a devotion that made Victoria's heart melt. "I am raising a rancher and a suffragette," Wade would joke as he watched his children play. Thomas was gentle and studious, while Sarah was bold and fearless. Both were loved beyond measure. The years passed in a blur of small joys and daily satisfactions. Wade expanded their horse breeding operation, gaining a reputation for training some of the finest horses in the territory. Victoria's school became a respected institution, producing students who went on to become teachers, ranchers, business people, and community leaders. The Kingston family became pillars of the Raton community. Wade served on the town council, advocating for schools and infrastructure improvements. Victoria organized community events and fundraisers. Together, they embodied what a true partnership looked like, supporting each other's goals while building something meaningful together. In 1885, Edward Thornton made a brief return to Raton for business. Victoria saw him on the street one day and he stopped to speak to her. He looked older, harder, though he was only in his mid-30s. "Mrs. Kingston," he said formally, "you are looking well." "Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I hope you are doing well also." "Well enough," he said. Then awkwardly, "I married 2 years ago, a woman from a prominent Santa Fe family. It was a suitable match." "I hope you are happy," Victoria said sincerely. Edward looked at her for a long moment. "Are you happy, I mean?" "Very much so," Victoria said. "I have a wonderful husband, 2 beautiful children, work that I love, and a life full of purpose. I could not ask for more." Something flickered across Edward's face. Regret, perhaps, or envy. "I am glad," he said finally. "I was angry when you broke our engagement, but I suppose you made the right choice. For yourself, at least." After he walked away, Victoria felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had been so close to spending her life with that cold, emotionally distant man. Instead, she had taken a chance on love and had been rewarded with more happiness than she had ever imagined possible. That evening, she told Wade about the encounter. He listened quietly, then pulled her into his arms. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you had married him?" "Never," Victoria said firmly. "Because that life is unimaginable to me now. You are my life, Wade. You and our children and everything we have built together. I would not trade a single moment of it." "Even the hard times?" Wade asked. "The years when we were struggling to get established?" "The times when we barely had enough money to get by, especially those times," Victoria said, "because we faced them together. We were partners, equals, working toward shared goals. That is worth more than all the wealth and security Edward could have provided." Wade kissed her softly. "I love you, Victoria Kingston, more today than yesterday and less than I will tomorrow." The years continued to unfold with their mixture of joy and challenge. Thomas grew into a thoughtful young man who loved books as much as his mother did, but who also had his father's skill with horses. Sarah became a passionate advocate for women's education, insisting on learning everything her brother learned, and then some. In 1888, Wade's horse breeding business had grown successful enough that he was able to hire help, allowing him more time to spend with his family. He and Victoria would often ride out to their favorite spot on the creek, just the two of them, to talk and dream and remember the early days of their marriage. "You remember the day we met?" Wade asked during one such outing. "How could I forget?" You walked into the store looking for work, and I thought you were the most honest-looking man I had ever seen. I took one look at you and thought, there is the woman I am going to marry. I did not know how or when, but I knew. Even though I was engaged to someone else, even then. I figured if you were meant to be mine, things would work out, and they did. Victoria leaned against his shoulder. You took such a risk proposing to me like that. What if I had said no? Then I would have left town with a broken heart but no regrets, Wade said. At least I would have known I tried. I could not have lived with myself if I had never asked, if I had just let you marry that man without telling you there was another choice. I am so glad you asked, Victoria said softly. You gave me the courage to choose my own path. You showed me that love was not just a luxury for the fortunate few, but something I deserved. In 1890, Thomas left for college in Denver, planning to study literature and education. Sarah, at age 11, declared her intention to become a lawyer, much to everyone's amusement and secret pride. Wade and Victoria found themselves with more time alone together, and they cherished it. Henry Delacroix passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1892, at the age of 68. He had lived to see his daughter happily married, his grandchildren thriving, and his business successful. His last words to Victoria were, "I am so proud of you, my dear. You chose well." The store passed to Victoria, and she and Wade ran it together with the same focus on serving the working families of Raton. They expanded to include a feed and grain operation, and a small lending library that Victoria curated with care. On their 15th wedding anniversary in 1893, Wade took Victoria back to the cemetery where he had first proposed. They stood together at her mother's grave, holding hands. "I come here sometimes to thank her," Wade said, "for raising such an extraordinary daughter and for that wind that day that whispered to you to be happy." Victoria smiled through her tears. "You remembered that. I remember everything about that day. The way you looked at me when I said I loved you, the fear and hope in your eyes, the moment you said yes, every detail is burned into my memory." "I remember too," Victoria said. "I remember thinking you were offering me the world and I was terrified to take it, but you made it safe to be brave." They visited Wade's parents' graves as well, telling them about Thomas's success in college and Sarah's fierce determination to change the world. Then they went home to their house on the land Wade had purchased all those years ago, the house they had built together with love and determination and hope. As they sat on their porch that evening, watching the sun set over the mountains, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 15 years ago, she had been a dutiful daughter preparing to marry for alliance and obligation. Then a cowboy had walked into her father's store and offered her something infinitely more precious: love, respect, and genuine partnership. She thought about Edward Thornton and the life she might have had. Cold comfort, social position, material wealth, but emotional poverty. She had chosen differently, and that choice had made all the difference. "What are you thinking about?" Wade asked, his arm around her shoulders. "About how lucky I am," Victoria said. "About how one choice, one moment of courage can change everything." "I am the lucky one," Wade insisted. "I am just a cowboy who had nothing to offer but honest work and a heart full of love. You could have chosen wealth and status, but you chose me instead." "I chose love," Victoria corrected. "I chose partnership and respect and genuine affection. I chose a man who saw me as an equal, who supported my dreams, who made me laugh and made me think and made me feel alive. That was never really a choice at all, Wade. It was inevitable." The years continued to pass, marked by the milestones of family life. Thomas married a woman he met in Denver and became a teacher, fulfilling his mother's legacy. Sarah, true to her word, fought her way into law school despite the significant barriers facing women in that profession. She graduated at the top of her class in 1900 and opened her own practice in Raton, specializing in property rights for women and families. Wade and Victoria became grandparents 3 times over, doting on Thomas's children with the same love and devotion they had shown their own. They remained active in the community, their house always open to neighbors in need or travelers passing through. In 1903, on their 25th wedding anniversary, the town of Raton held a celebration in their honor. The Kingston family had become synonymous with integrity, hard work, and genuine love. Victoria's school had educated hundreds of children, many of whom had gone on to successful careers. Wade's horses were prized throughout the territory. Together, they had built something that would outlast them, a legacy of love and service. At the celebration, the mayor gave a speech praising their contributions to the community. But what Victoria remembered most was what Wade said when they asked him to speak. 25 years ago, Wade began, his voice still strong despite his 51 years. I walked into a general store looking for work. Instead, I found my purpose. Victoria, you have been my partner, my best friend, my greatest teacher, and my deepest love. Every morning, I wake up grateful that you chose me. Every evening, I go to sleep thankful for another day by your side. You were meant to marry for alliance, but I offered you marriage for love. The truth is, you did not just win my heart. You transformed it, expanded it, made it capable of more love than I ever thought possible. Thank you for taking a chance on a cowboy who had nothing to offer but his whole heart. Victoria stood and kissed him to thunderous applause. You had everything to offer, she said. You just did not realize it yet. They danced that night like they were 22 again, swept up in the joy of choosing each other, of building a life together, of proving that love was not a luxury but a necessity, not a weakness but the greatest strength of all. In their later years, as age slowed their bodies but not their spirits, Wade and Victoria would often sit on their porch and watch the sun set over the mountains. They would hold hands and remember the long journey that had brought them there, the telegram that had seemed to seal her fate, the cowboy who had offered her a choice, the moment of courage that had changed everything. You have any regrets? Wade asked her one evening as they sat watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Victoria thought about it seriously, reviewing the life they had built together. The hard times and the good times, the struggles and the triumphs, the ordinary days and the extraordinary moments. Not a single one, she finally said. Except maybe that I did not meet you sooner. Wade laughed, the sound rich and warm. We met exactly when we were supposed to. Any earlier, and we might not have been ready for each other. You are probably right, Victoria agreed. Everything happened exactly as it should have. In 1908, Wade suffered a bad fall while training a particularly spirited young horse. At 66, his body did not heal as quickly as it once had. Victoria nursed him back to health with fierce determination, refusing to consider any alternative. When he recovered, he reluctantly agreed to step back from the more dangerous aspects of horse training, leaving it to younger hands. I am getting old, he grumbled one day. We both are, Victoria said matter-of-factly. But we are getting old together, which is what matters. They celebrated their 30th anniversary in 1908, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and friends. Wade had recovered well from his injury, though he moved a bit more slowly than before. Victoria's hair was silver now, and her hands showed the work of decades, but her eyes still sparkled with the intelligence and warmth that had first captured Wade's heart. 30 years, Wade marveled. It feels like both forever and no time at all. That is how love works, Victoria said wisely. Each moment is precious, but all the moments together add up to a life. Sarah gave a toast at the celebration. My parents showed me what marriage should be, she said. Not a business arrangement or a social contract, but a genuine partnership between equals. My mother was meant to marry for alliance, but my father offered her marriage for love. He won her heart not with wealth or status, but with respect and honest affection. They have shown me, and everyone who knows them, that love is the foundation on which everything else worth having is built. In the autumn of 1910, Victoria received a letter from a woman in Santa Fe. It was from Edward Thornton's widow. Edward had died of a heart attack at the age of 58. His widow wrote that she was settling his affairs and had found an old letter Edward had written but never sent, addressed to Victoria. She thought Victoria might want to see it. The letter was dated 1898, 20 years after their broken engagement. In it, Edward admitted that he had been wrong about love and marriage. His own marriage, arranged for status and alliance, had been cold and unfulfilling. He had lived a successful life by most measures, but he had never been happy. He wrote that he sometimes saw Victoria in town with her family and felt a pang of something he could only identify as regret. He wanted to apologize for his coldness all those years ago, and to acknowledge that she had made the right choice in refusing to marry him. Victoria showed the letter to Wade. They read it together in silence, then sat for a long moment digesting its contents. "I feel sorry for him," Victoria finally said. "He spent his whole life chasing things that did not matter and ignoring the things that did." "But you did not make that mistake," Wade said. "We did not make that mistake." "No, we did not. Thanks to you." "Thanks to us," Wade corrected. "You had the courage to choose differently. I just gave you the option." In 1912, as they approached their 34th anniversary, Wade's health began to decline more noticeably. The years of hard work and a lifetime lived fully had taken their toll. He tired more easily and moved with the stiffness of old age. But his mind remained sharp, and his love for Victoria never wavered. They spent more time together, just the two of them, savoring each moment. They would take short walks on their property, remembering when they had first bought the land and dreamed of the life they would build. They would sit by the fire and read to each other from their favorite books. They would lie in bed and talk about their children and grandchildren, marveling at the family they had created. "We did good work," Wade would say often. "We built something that will last." "We built it together," Victoria always replied. "That is what makes it lasting." On a warm spring evening in 1913, Wade and Victoria sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Wade took Victoria's hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I want you to know something," he said seriously. "These 35 years with you have been the greatest blessing of my life. Every moment, good or bad, has been worth it because I got to share it with you. Wade Kingston, are you getting sentimental on me?" Victoria teased gently, though her eyes were bright with tears. "Maybe I am. I am 70 years old. I have earned the right to be sentimental." He squeezed her hand. "I just want to make sure you know, you made my life worth living, Victoria. You gave it purpose and meaning and joy." "You did the same for me," Victoria said softly. "You taught me that love was not a sacrifice but a gift. You showed me that partnership and respect were the foundations of happiness. You won my heart so completely that there is no part of me that does not belong to you." They sat together as the stars emerged one by one, holding hands and remembering. They remembered the day they met, the day Wade proposed, their wedding day. They remembered building their house and starting Victoria's school. They remembered the births of their children and the joy of watching them grow. They remembered every triumph and challenge, every laugh and tear, every ordinary day that had added up to an extraordinary life. Wade passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 weeks later, at the age of 70, with Victoria holding his hand. The whole town mourned the loss of a good man who had lived with integrity and loved with his whole heart. Victoria grieved deeply, but she also felt profound gratitude. She had been given 35 years with a man who had seen her, valued her, and loved her completely. How many people could say that? She lived another 7 years, continuing to teach and to be active in the community. She watched her grandchildren grow and even met 2 great-grandchildren before she passed. She never remarried, though several men expressed interest. Wade had been her partner, her love, her choice, and she remained faithful to that choice until the end. Victoria died peacefully in 1920 at the age of 64, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Her last words were, "Tell your father I will see him soon." They buried her next to Wade on a hill overlooking their land with a simple stone that read, Victoria Kingston, 1856-1920. Beloved wife, mother, teacher. She chose love. The story of Wade and Victoria Kingston became a legend in Raton, passed down through generations as an example of what marriage could be when built on genuine love and mutual respect. Their descendants remained in the area, continuing the legacy of service and integrity that their ancestors had established. The schoolhouse Victoria founded continued to operate for decades, educating generations of children. The house Wade built stood strong and sturdy, eventually becoming a historical landmark. The land they had purchased with hope and dreams remained in the family, a testament to the life they had built together. And sometimes, on spring evenings when the sunset painted the sky gold and rose, people claimed you could see 2 figures sitting on that old porch, holding hands and watching the stars emerge. Whether it was memory or something more, it served as a reminder that true love, the kind worth fighting for, never really ends. It echoes through time, inspiring others to be brave enough to choose their own path, to value partnership over status, and to remember that marriage for love will always triumph over marriage for alliance. The telegram that had arrived on that Tuesday morning in March of 1878 had seemed to seal Victoria's fate. But a cowboy with honest eyes and a heart full of hope had offered her a different choice, and she had been brave enough to take it. That single act of courage had created ripples that spread far beyond their own lives, touching everyone who heard their story and reminding them that love, real love, was always worth the risk in the end. That was the true legacy of Wade and Victoria Kingston. Not the successful business or the school or even the family they raised, though all of those mattered. Their real legacy was the proof that choosing love over obligation, partnership over power, and genuine connection over social advantage would always lead to a life well lived. They had shown by example that the greatest riches were not counted in dollars or status, but in moments shared, respect given and received, and a lifetime of choosing each other every single day. Their story became a beacon for those facing similar choices, a reminder that it was never too late to choose differently, to be brave, to reach for what the heart truly wanted rather than what society expected. Victoria had been meant to marry for alliance, but Wade had offered marriage for love and had won her heart completely. And in winning her heart, he had given her something far more valuable than security or status. He had given her a life worth living, a partnership worth having, and a love worth remembering.